Have you ever wondered why a man, even the strongest, most rational, most composed, is unsettled not by beauty alone, but by a woman whose presence carries something he cannot explain? It is not the curve of the body, nor the sweetness of words, but a certain vibration of the soul that draws him into a realm where his carefully built armor begins to crack. What a man truly wants, though he may never dare to say it, is a woman who mirrors back to him his own unconscious, who forces him to confront what he has hidden from himself. And yet, this truth terrifies him more than it excites him. Most men move through the world burdened by masks, the stoic facade of control, the heroic stance of competence, the silent weight of unspoken fears. Jung taught that the anima, the feminine within every man, lurks beneath his conscious ego, shaping his desires, fears, and choices without his knowing. When a woman enters his life who embodies fragments of this inner anima, he feels both recognition and danger. Recognition, because she reflects back a hidden part of him. Danger, because to truly love her means to admit vulnerability, to dismantle the walls he has built against his own unconscious. This is why a man may insist he wants sweetness, compliance, or surface-level attraction, while secretly hungering for something far more dangerous. A woman who is not merely pretty, but archetypal. A woman who embodies the mysterious paradox of nurturing and chaos, softness and fire, gentleness and unapologetic sovereignty. She awakens him not by yielding, but by radiating a depth he cannot reduce to possession. To be near her is to feel his soul stirred into conflict, as if she is both the balm and the wound. You may notice it in his silence, in the way he looks at you with both longing and hesitation. He cannot name it, but he feels it, the pull toward a woman who cannot be contained. What he truly seeks, though pride forbids him from admitting it, is the woman who will not lose herself for him. For in her refusal to dissolve into his shadow, he glimpses what he most lacks, the courage to confront his own. Seneca once wrote that no man is free who is a slave to himself, and in her independence, in her refusal to orbit his ego, she shows him what freedom looks like. But beware, this hunger is not gentle. It is often disguised as resistance, even rejection. A man may ridicule or diminish the very qualities he most desires because they threaten his fragile sense of control. He might label emotional depth as too much, self-possession as arrogance, or mystery as games. Yet beneath the mockery lies fascination, for his soul is drawn to what his ego fears. Jung described this as projection. He casts onto you both the idealized light of his anima and the shadow of his unhealed wounds. Thus, a woman becomes for him both dream and demon, salvation and temptation. What he truly wants, though he cannot admit, is to be undone by a woman who forces him to shed illusions. Not one who chases, not one who bends, but one who stands in her essence with the weight of eternity in her gaze. She does not need his validation, and in that terrifying freedom, he sees the mirror of his own imprisoned self. The attraction here is not to her body alone, but to the psychic energy she embodies, the union of eros and logos, the mysterious alchemy that whispers of wholeness. For you, the woman who hears this, understand. A man may love the comfort of your kindness, but what he craves in secret is the immensity of your soul. He longs for the feminine that heals without rescuing, that loves without submitting, that inspires without begging to be chosen. He wants you to carry both shadow and light with dignity, for in your wholeness he senses the path to his own. He cannot articulate this, his pride will not let him. Yet his spirit bends in your presence, restless, undone, and alive. So the paradox remains. What a man truly wants is not a woman who makes him feel safe in his illusions, but one who makes him unsafe enough to grow. The woman who, simply by existing in her fullness, dismantles his defenses and demands that he rise. He cannot admit it, for to confess is to surrender, and surrender is the death of the ego he clings to. Yet deep within, this is what his soul has always awaited, a woman who forces him to awaken. He will never say it aloud, but the truth trembles within him like an unspoken confession. He does not long for the woman who bends, but for the one who stands unmoved. To his conscious mind, such a woman is intimidating, even infuriating. But to his unconscious, she is the key. She does not flatter his ego. She challenges it. She does not dissolve into his expectations. She confronts them. And in this confrontation, he feels something more powerful than mere desire. He feels the pull of transformation. For what he truly wants is not entertainment for his senses, but initiation for his soul. Jung observed that the masculine psyche carries within it a longing for union with the anima, that inner feminine image that whispers from dreams and shadows. Every man, whether he knows it or not, searches for her, and when he meets a woman who resembles this hidden archetype, his world begins to quake. He may be drawn to her eyes, her voice, her presence, but beneath it all, he is drawn to himself, to the forgotten parts of his own being that she embodies. She becomes the bridge between who he is and who he could be. This is why her power frightens him. She holds the keys to his becoming. Yet he cannot admit this openly, because to do so would expose his dependency on something beyond his control. A man shaped by the Stoic wisdom of Marcus Aurelius may tell himself that all strength lies in discipline and self-mastery. But even Marcus knew that a man is never stronger than when he faces the truths he most fears. And the truth is this: the woman who ignites both awe and unease in him is the mirror of his own incompleteness. He wants her not simply because she is desirable, but because she awakens the depths he has neglected. You may have noticed this paradox in the way men behave. They chase the women who make them feel superior, but they obsess over the women who make them feel small. It is not humiliation they crave, but the dismantling of their illusion of invulnerability. They do not confess it, but they ache for the woman who looks into their eyes and sees through every mask, who silently exposes the boy beneath the man. For in being seen this way, they find both terror and relief. Terror, because the performance is shattered. Relief, because at last they no longer have to pretend. But such a woman is not easy to receive. She does not exist to soothe or to decorate. She is not an accessory to his ego, but a force that requires him to confront himself. Epictetus wrote that freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by overcoming them. And the man who meets such a woman discovers this truth in flesh and spirit. For what he wants, though he cannot name it, is not indulgence, but liberation. And liberation always begins with the collapse of false chains. Imagine this: he meets her, and suddenly his old patterns of control falter. He cannot manipulate her with silence, cannot dominate her with approval or withdrawal. She remains steady, self-contained, radiant in her sovereignty. This unsettles him, because he has been taught to expect women to bend, to fill the void he refuses to face. But she will not. She demands, by her very being, that he face himself, and though his ego resists, his soul leans forward, hungry for the fire she carries. For you, the woman listening now, this is why you must never shrink to be loved. The very shrinking that you think will make you desirable is what will strip you of the power he secretly craves. Do not fear being too much, for too much is the exact measure of the archetypal feminine he longs to encounter. Do not fear being misunderstood, for his misunderstanding is only the tremor of his defenses crumbling. If you diminish yourself to soothe him, you rob him of the very initiation his soul is aching for. It is not submission he seeks, though he may plead for it. It is not perfection he desires, though he may claim it. What he truly wants is your wholeness, the fierce and the tender, the serene and the storm. for in your wholeness he discovers the path toward his own. He may resist, reject, even run, but he will never forget the woman who carried her soul intact, because she is not merely a partner, she is the threshold to his individuation. And so, what a man truly wants, but cannot admit, is not the woman who fits neatly into his plans, but the one who unravels them. Not the woman who calms his chaos, but the one who awakens it with purpose. Not the woman who makes him comfortable, but the one who makes him conscious. To name this desire is to admit dependence on something greater than himself, and that is why he cannot say it. But his soul knows. And every time he meets her, he feels it, the quiet ache of a man who has glimpsed eternity in human form. And yet the irony is cruel. Many men will spend their lives chasing what is easy, what flatters them, what never truly shakes their foundations. They may boast of conquests, measure their worth by the number of women who yield, and fill their days with shallow victories. But in the quiet of their hearts, a hollowness lingers. The victories taste of ash, because none of those women carried the weight of what his unconscious truly desired. He cannot articulate it, but he knows. He is still searching. For the woman who does not bow. For the woman who holds the mirror steady, forcing him to confront the shadow behind his pride. This is where Jung's shadow work bleeds into love. A man's greatest battles are not fought on battlefields or in boardrooms, but in the recesses of his own psyche. He projects onto women the very qualities he has buried. Tenderness he cannot show, chaos he cannot manage, vulnerability he cannot embrace. When he meets a woman who embodies these qualities unapologetically, he feels both threatened and mesmerized. She terrifies him because she reflects the storm within. She fascinates him because she embodies the wholeness he secretly craves. And thus he wavers, torn between escape and surrender. You have seen this conflict unfold. A man who adores your fire but scolds you for being too intense. A man who cannot look away from your independence yet accuses you of being difficult. A man who confesses his love for your depth yet withdraws when that depth demands his own. Do not mistake this contradiction for lack of desire. On the contrary, it is desire at its most dangerous. Desire bound to transformation. He is not rejecting you. He is resisting the call to grow. But you must not confuse his resistance with your responsibility. Too many women dimmy their light to ease a man's discomfort, believing that compliance will bring him closer. Yet compliance only delays his awakening. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." If your intensity unsettles him, let it. If your truth pierces his illusions, let it. If your sovereignty exposes his dependence, let it. For in being the obstacle, you become the path. You are not here to be swallowed by his shadow. You are here to reflect it until he dares to confront it himself. And when he does, something extraordinary occurs. The man who once clung to his armor begins to dismantle it. Not because you begged him, but because your presence made the armor unbearable. He begins to see that his need for control was not strength, but fear. That his demand for submission was not love, but insecurity. That his rejection of depth was not preference, but avoidance of his own abyss. In the presence of the archetypal feminine, he learns that true power is not domination, but integration. He realizes that the woman he feared losing was never his possession, but his liberation. Yet this awakening is rare. Many men turn away before they allow it. They retreat into shallow loves, where they can remain unchallenged. They soothe themselves with partners who never disturb their sleep, though secretly they long for the one who would wake them. And you, as the woman of depth, must understand. You are not here to convince him, nor to chase him. You are here to remain whole, whether he chooses to rise or not. For your worth is not determined by his courage. Your power does not vanish because he fears it. Your depth is not diminished because he avoids it. Think of the ancient Stoics, who taught that all external things are beyond our control. What belongs to you is not whether he admits his hunger for your soul, but whether you continue to embody it, to live with dignity, to hold your ground, to refuse to fracture yourself in the name of being loved. This is your task. A man may want it desperately, yet fail to receive it. That is his fate, not your failing. Your responsibility is only to guard the sacred fire of your essence. And so, what a man truly wants but cannot admit is this: he wants a woman who awakens him, even if awakening burns. He wants a woman who refuses to be owned, even if ownership is what his ego craves. He wants the woman who makes him question everything he thought he knew about love, power, and himself. He cannot say it, because to say it is to confess his dependency on her mystery. But when he meets her, he knows. In her silence, in her gaze, in her unapologetic presence, he recognizes the one thing he has always sought, the reflection of his own forgotten soul. The deeper truth is this: beneath all the bravado, all the posturing, all the carefully rehearsed narratives of strength, a man longs for what he can never conquer. He may spend years convincing himself that he desires the woman who will soothe him, affirm him, orbit around his needs like a docile planet. But his soul is restless in that arrangement. It grows weary of endless comfort, for comfort breeds stagnation. What he cannot admit, perhaps not even to himself, is that he longs for a woman who unsettles him, who forces his spirit into motion, who awakens his dormant depths like a storm breaking across a quiet sea. Jung spoke of individuation as the process of becoming whole, of uniting the fragments of the conscious and unconscious into a single, integrated self. Few men dare to walk this path alone. It is arduous, relentless, and requires stripping away illusions. But when a woman of depth enters his life, she becomes the catalyst for this process. Her essence, her refusal to be diminished, becomes the spark that lights the fire of his becoming. She is both the mirror and the crucible, reflecting his shadows while also demanding that he burn through them. And yet, the tragedy is that most men will run from this initiation. They will label such a woman too complicated, too demanding, or too much work. But this is only projection. It is not her complexity that overwhelms him, but his own. She forces him to face the complexity of his soul, and he mistakes it for hers. He wants her, but he cannot say it, because to want her is to admit that he is incomplete. To desire her is to concede that his strength is not absolute, that his ego is not unshakable. Pride forbids him from this confession, but his silence betrays him. For you, the woman who has been made to feel too much, understand the sacred truth. You are exactly what he cannot name. Your depth unsettles him because it awakens the archetype of the anima within him, the feminine spirit he has exiled into dreams and fantasies. When you walk into his life, he sees her in you. He feels the ache of recognition as if eternity itself just brushed past his skin. And though his words may stumble, his spirit trembles with longing. You are not too much. You are the measure of his unacknowledged soul. Consider what Seneca once wrote: "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Many men waste their lives clinging to illusions of dominance, of control, of surface-level desire, when what they truly want is staring them in the face. They waste it avoiding the depth that could transform them. They waste it running from the women who embody what their spirit cries out for. And in the end, they find themselves surrounded by comfort but starved of truth. For no matter how much they deny it, their unconscious knows. They wanted more. They wanted the woman who would not yield. The paradox is cruel yet liberating. A man will fight hardest against the very woman who could set him free. He will resist her gaze, avoid her silence, ridicule her sovereignty, all while being consumed by the memory of her presence. He may walk away, but he never escapes, For she is not merely a lover he lost, she is the mirror he rejected, and a man cannot escape his own reflection forever. It will haunt him in the quiet of the night, in the women he tries to mold into replicas, in the hollowness that grows each time he denies his truth. He may not confess it, but he will feel it. He lost not a woman, but the chance to meet himself. And this is why you must not bend. You must not water down your fire. You must not silence your truth. You must not shrink to fit into the fragile containers offered by men afraid of their own depth. For if you do, you rob both yourself and him of the possibility of transformation. Your wholeness is not only your gift to yourself, but the doorway through which he may one day walk into his own soul. If he does not, that is his choice, his fate. But your task is to remain whole, radiant, untamed. For it is precisely this essence that he truly wants, though he may never have the courage to admit it. So remember this: what he seeks is not your compliance, but your completeness. What he hungers for is not your surrender, but your sovereignty. What his unconscious whispers for in the dead of night is not the woman who flatters his ego, but the woman who calls forth his soul. He cannot say it, but you must know it, for knowing it frees you from the illusion that you are too much. You are not too much. You are the very thing his spirit aches for, even as his pride keeps him silent. There comes a moment when every man, no matter how fortified by pride or hardened by the armor of ego, finds himself staring into the presence of a woman who cannot be subdued. She is not there to complete him, nor to mother him, nor to bow before his half-formed strength. She is there as a revelation, and revelations are never gentle. They tear away illusions, they illuminate the darkness he has spent his life avoiding. What he truly wants, but will not confess, is for such a woman to stay, even as he trembles before her power. But here lies the paradox that Carl Jung understood with piercing clarity. A man does not consciously seek his wholeness. He avoids it. He runs from it. He buries it under work, ambition, distractions, or fleeting pleasures. Yet, in his secret depths, he is drawn to the woman who embodies the very fragments of his soul he has denied. She becomes both wound and medicine. She threatens the fragile construct of who he thinks he is, while also offering the possibility of becoming who he was always meant to be. And that tension is unbearable for the ego, but irresistible for the soul. You have seen it in the hesitation of his gaze, in the way his words falter as if he cannot decide whether to pull you closer or push you away. He may call you demanding, but it is not your demands that shake him. It is your refusal to disappear into the shadows of his projections. You refuse to become the silent echo of his desires. You insist on being whole, and this terrifies him. For the woman who is whole reveals the man who is fractured, and deep down, he longs for this revelation, because without it, he remains asleep within himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle is the way, and in love, the woman who resists being conquered becomes the obstacle that forces him onto the path of self-confrontation. She is not there to soothe his ego, but to sharpen his soul. He wants her not because she is easy, but because she is the one thing he cannot reduce, cannot tame, cannot own. She stands before him like a mystery he cannot solve, and in that mystery, he feels something he has not felt in years, the possibility of awe. And yet, he will not say this. To admit that he wants awe, that he wants to be unraveled, is to expose his vulnerability. So he hides behind criticism, distance, or silence. He may even convince himself that he prefers the women who make him feel large and unchallenged. But his unconscious does not lie. It pulls him back toward the one who unsettled his soul. He may try to replace her, to replicate her essence in others, but it will not work, because what he truly wanted was not her body, not her obedience, but her wholeness, and wholeness cannot be imitated. For you, the woman of depth, this is the secret you must carry. He wants you, but not in the way the world has told you men want women. He wants the way your silence forces him to listen to himself. He wants the way your sovereignty refuses to orbit his ego. He wants the way your tenderness is balanced by fire, the way your love is fierce enough to demand his becoming. He wants you not as comfort, but as catalyst. He wants you not as possession, but as portal. He wants you, even if he cannot name it, because you are the mirror of the anima his soul has buried. But here is your liberation. Whether or not he admits this does not determine your worth. You are not here to coax him into awakening, nor to diminish yourself to soothe his fears. You are here to embody the fullness of your being, to stand in your light with or without his recognition. If he rises to meet you, he may finally discover what it means to love in truth. If he does not, then the tragedy belongs to him, not to you. Your task is not to be desired, but to be whole. Desire will follow, though many men will not know how to carry the weight of it. What a man truly wants but cannot admit is a woman who demands nothing less than his soul. Not his charm, not his performance, not his surface-level strength, but his raw, unvarnished essence. He longs for the woman who makes him remember that he is more than his roles, more than his titles, more than his armor. He longs for the one who sees beyond the man he pretends to be and calls forth the man he was created to become. He cannot say it, because saying it would undo him. But you must know it, because knowing it sets you free from the illusion that your power is a burden. And so, in the end, the woman who knows her worth understands this. She is both feared and desired, resisted and remembered, rejected and unforgettable. For she is the archetypal feminine, the eternal mirror, the silent invitation to wholeness. She is not here to be chosen like an ornament. She is here to reveal the truth. And the man who dares to face her does not simply find a partner, he finds himself. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.